A bright, sunny afternoon in a tiny town called Maple Grove. The sun is shining high in the sky, making everything look happy and warm. Kids are running around, laughing and chasing each other down the street. Birds are singing their little songs, hopping from tree to tree. And the air? Oh, it smells so good, like sugar and sweets drifting out of a little place called Dawson's Sweet Shop. That's the candy store right in the middle of town, and it's the best spot for anyone who loves a treat. Now, inside that candy store works a lady named Emily Dawson. She's the boss there, the one who owns it. If you saw her, you'd think she's just a regular candy lady. She's got gray hair that she pulls back into a neat little bun. She wears a bright apron tied around her waist. Sometimes it's red, sometimes it's blue, but it's always got little candy shapes on it. And her smile? It's the kind that makes you feel all cozy, like you're visiting your favorite grandma. She's always busy, handing out lollipops to kids who come in with big, excited eyes. She chats with their moms, asking about their day or what kind of candy they like best. To everyone in Maple Grove, Emily seems so normal. Just a sweet, friendly lady who loves making people happy with her candy. But here's the big secret, and you're gonna love this: Emily isn't what she seems. Nope. Nobody in town knows the real Emily. Not the people walking by her shop every day. Not the customers who buy her gummy bears and chocolate bars. And definitely not the noisy gang of bikers who rolled into town that afternoon on their loud motorcycles. Oh boy, those bikers had no idea what they were walking into. Let me tell you about that day. It started out so nice and peaceful. The sun was shining, the birds were chirping, and Emily was behind her counter, wrapping up some candy for a little girl with pigtails. The girl giggled as Emily handed her a big, swirly lollipop and said, "Have a sweet day, kiddo." The mom smiled and said, "Thanks, Emily. You're the best." Everything was perfect in Maple Grove. The kind of day where nothing bad could happen, or so everyone thought. Then, all of a sudden, you could hear it. A loud rumble. Like thunder, but it wasn't a storm. It was the sound of big motorcycles roaring down the street. Kids stopped playing and looked up. Moms grabbed their bags and peeked out the shop window. Even the birds got quiet for a second. The noise got louder and louder until bam, 5 big, tough-looking bikers pulled up right in front of Dawson's Sweet Shop. Their bikes were shiny and black, with loud engines that made the ground shake a little. They wore leather jackets covered in patches, and their boots made heavy thumps when they jumped off their bikes and hit the pavement. These guys looked mean. Like the kind of people you wouldn't want to mess with. They laughed loud and talked even louder, acting like they owned the whole town. People walking by hurried away, not wanting any trouble. The bikers didn't care. They looked at Emily's little candy shop and grinned like they'd found something funny. To them, it was just a silly little store run by some old lady. They thought Emily was weak. They thought she was soft. They thought she couldn't do anything to stop them if they decided to cause trouble. Oh, they were so wrong. But they didn't know that yet. Not even a little bit. Inside the shop, Emily heard the engines and looked up. She saw the bikers through the window, parking their bikes right in front of her door. Most people would get scared. Most people would start to shake or hide. But Emily. She didn't even blink. She just kept wiping down her counter with a rag, nice and calm. The little girl with the lollipop skipped out with her mom, and Emily waved goodbye like nothing was wrong. But if you looked really close, you might have seen something in her eyes. A little spark. Like she knew something nobody else did. Outside, the bikers were already joking about her. One of them, a big guy with a scruffy beard, pointed at the shop and laughed. "Look at this place. A candy store? What's next, a teddy bear shop?" Another one, with a shiny helmet, said, "Yeah, and that old lady inside. Bet she couldn't even lift a candy bar." They all cracked up, slapping each other on the back. They thought Emily was nothing. Just some quiet, weak lady who'd run away crying if they scared her. They had no clue who they were dealing with. Not a single hint. See, Emily wasn't just a candy lady. She had a secret, a big one. A secret so cool and surprising that it would flip everything upside down. The townsfolk didn't know it. The customers didn't know it. And those bikers? They were about to find out the hard way. But not yet. Oh no, not yet. The fun was just starting, and Emily was ready to let it play out. She wasn't scared of those loud bikes or those tough guys. She'd seen worse. Way worse. But I won't spill her secret right now, you've gotta stick around to find out what it is. So, what do you think so far? Pretty wild, right? I bet you're wondering who Emily really is. Is she a superhero? A spy? Something even crazier? And those bikers, what's gonna happen when they figure out she's not just some regular candy lady? I've got a question for you, have you ever met someone who looked totally normal but turned out to be amazing? Like, maybe a teacher who's secretly a karate master, or a neighbor who used to be a famous singer. Tell me about it in the comments, I'd love to hear your stories. And hey, if you're liking this so far, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can catch the rest of Emily's adventure. Trust me, it's gonna get even better. Back to Maple Grove, that sunny day was about to change. The bikers were outside, laughing and making plans. They thought they could walk all over Emily and her little shop. They thought she'd be easy to scare. But Emily. She was standing there, quiet as ever, with that tiny spark in her eyes growing bigger. Something awesome was coming. Something those bikers would never expect in a million years. And it all started right there, on that perfect afternoon, in that little candy store. It was a big moment in Maple Grove when those bikers showed up. Their motorcycles roared into town, pulling right up outside Emily's candy shop. The engines growled so loud it sounded like thunder rolling across the sky. Kids on the street stopped playing and stared. Moms peeked out of windows, wondering what was going on. There were 5 bikers total, and they looked tough, really tough. They were big guys with messy hair and leather jackets that creaked when they moved. Tattoos covered their arms, all twisty and dark, like snakes climbing up to their shoulders. These weren't the kind of guys you'd want to run into in a dark alley. The leader of the pack was a guy named Razor. Yep, Razor, that's what they called him. He had a scruffy beard and a grin that showed way too many teeth, like he was up to no good. He jumped off his bike first, his heavy black boots hitting the ground with a loud thud. Then he walked right into Dawson's sweet shop like he was the king of the world. His boots clomped on the wooden floor, thump, 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 echoing through the little store. Emily was behind the counter, wiping it down with a rag, when Razor came in. He didn't knock or say hi. He just marched up and leaned over the counter, real close to her, with that sneaky grin on his face. "Hey, candy lady," he said in a mean, teasing voice. "This is a nice little shop you got here. Be a real shame if something happened to it." His words sounded like a threat, like he was daring her to get mad. The other bikers followed him inside, laughing loud and rough. One of them, a guy with a shiny bald head, reached out and knocked over a jar of gumdrops sitting on the counter. Crash! The jar hit the floor, and bright little candies spilled everywhere, rolling under the shelves. The bikers thought it was hilarious. They hooted and slapped their knees, acting like it was the funniest thing ever. But Emily. She didn't jump or yell or even look scared. Nope. She stayed super calm. She bent down, picked up the jar, and set it back on the shelf like nothing happened. Then she looked at Razor and said, real quiet, "I'd rather you didn't do that." Her voice wasn't loud or shaky. It was steady, like she wasn't afraid at all. The bikers didn't expect that. They thought she'd cry or run away, but she didn't. She just stood there, watching them with those sharp, gray eyes of hers. Razor laughed even harder when she said that. "Oh, she's feisty," he shouted, turning to his buddies. "What are you gonna do, Granny? Hit me with a candy cane?" The gang cracked up again, their voices bouncing off the walls. They thought Emily was a joke. To them, she was just some old lady who couldn't do anything. So they kept going. One biker grabbed a handful of jelly beans from a bowl and stuffed them in his mouth, chewing loud and messy. Another one snatched some candy bars and tossed the wrappers on the floor, letting them flutter down like trash. They were making a mess, and they didn't care one bit. Emily didn't say anything else. She didn't scream or stomp her feet. She just stood there, her eyes getting a little narrower, like she was thinking hard. Her hands stayed still, not shaking even a tiny bit. Most people would be super mad if someone messed with their stuff like that. Most people would yell or call for help. But Emily. She was different. Too quiet. Too still. It was like the air around her got heavy, like something big was waiting to happen. You know how it feels right before a storm, When the sky gets dark and everything goes silent. That's what it was like in the candy shop right then. Calm, but not the good kind of calm. The bikers didn't notice. They were too busy laughing and acting tough. Razor leaned closer to Emily, his big hands pressing on the counter. "You better watch out, candy lady," he said, his voice low and mean. "We don't like boring little shops like this. Maybe we'll come back and have some real fun." He smirked, thinking he'd scared her. His buddies nodded, cracking their knuckles like they were ready for trouble. They thought they were in charge. They thought Emily was weak and helpless. Oh, they had no idea what was coming. Outside, the sun was still shining, but inside the shop, things were getting tense. The bikers kept goofing off, tossing more candy around and making rude jokes. One of them kicked a chair just to see it tip over. Another one banged on the counter with his fist, yelling, "Where's your money, old lady? Give us some cash." They were trying to push her, to see how far they could go. But Emily didn't budge. She didn't cry or beg them to stop. She just watched them, quiet as a mouse, with that little spark in her eyes growing bigger. It was like she was waiting for something they didn't see coming. If you were there, you might have felt it too. That feeling that things weren't what they seemed. The bikers thought they were the toughest guys around. They thought Emily was nothing, just a candy lady who couldn't fight back. But there was something about her. Something strong. Something hidden. She didn't look scared, even with 5 big, loud bikers in her shop. She didn't look weak, even when they trashed her stuff. Why wasn't she afraid? What was she thinking? You could almost hear the questions hanging in the air, waiting for answers. So, what would you do if someone messed with your stuff like that? Imagine it: someone comes into your room or your favorite place and starts breaking things, laughing in your face. Would you yell at them? Would you run and get help? Or would you stay calm like Emily, waiting for the right moment? I'm super curious. Tell me what you'd do in the comments. I bet you've got some cool ideas. Back in the shop, the bikers were still at it. Razor flicked a peppermint at Emily, just to be annoying. It bounced off her apron and rolled away. He grinned, waiting for her to get mad. But she didn't. She picked up the peppermint, set it back on the counter, and looked right at him. Not a word. Just that look. And for a tiny second, Razor's grin got a little smaller. He didn't know why, but something about her made him pause. The other bikers didn't notice, they were too busy being loud. But Razor felt it. Something wasn't right. Something was off. And that's when the real tension started to build. The bikers thought they were winning. They thought they could do whatever they wanted. But Emily. She wasn't playing their game. She was playing her own. And soon, oh, so soon, they'd find out what happens when you push the wrong person too far. Stick around, because this is just the beginning. Days went by after that first visit from the bikers, and guess what? They didn't stop coming back. Nope. Every day, those 5 big, loud guys roared into Maple Grove on their shiny motorcycles. The engines growled and rumbled, shaking the little candy shop like a big storm was rolling in. They'd park their bikes right in front of Dawson's sweet shop, smack in front of the door. Not just one bike, but all 5, lined up like a wall. Nobody could get in. Customers, moms with kids, old folks looking for a treat, would peek at the bikes, shake their heads, and walk away. The bikers didn't care. They wanted to make trouble, and they were good at it. It wasn't just the parking, though. Oh no, they did way more than that. They'd bang on the shop windows with their fists, bam, 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 so hard you'd think the glass might break. They'd yell rude things, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Hey, candy lady, your shop stinks," one would shout. "Yeah, give us your candy, you old hag," another would holler. Kids who used to run in for lollipops got scared and stayed away. One little girl dropped her ice cream cone and cried when they roared past her. The bikers just laughed, like it was all a big game. They wanted everyone to know they were tough and mean. Razor, the leader, was the worst of them all. One day, he walked right into the shop and saw a big display of chocolate bars Emily had worked hard to set up. It was super pretty, rows of shiny wrappers all stacked up like a tower. Razor grinned that sneaky grin of his, pulled back his arm, and smash, knocked the whole thing over. Chocolate bars flew everywhere, crashing to the floor and breaking into pieces. He didn't even care. He just watched them scatter and laughed. "Pay us some money," he growled at Emily, his voice low and mean. "Or this place is toast. Got it?" He kicked a piece of chocolate across the room, just to make his point. Now, if that happened to most people, they'd freak out. They'd cry or yell or run to the phone and call the cops. But Emily. She didn't do any of that. Not even close. She didn't pay Razor a single penny. She didn't shed one tear. She didn't even pick up the phone to dial for help. Instead, she did something way cooler. She watched. She listened. She stayed super calm, like nothing could shake her. Every time Razor opened his mouth, she remembered what he said. Every time he moved stomping his boots or waving his arms, she noticed. She was like a hawk, keeping her eyes on everything, waiting for something. But what? Nobody knew. Not yet. One afternoon, a little boy came into the shop. He was small, with messy hair and big, curious eyes. The bikers had just left, and the floor was still messy with candy wrappers they'd thrown around. The boy looked up at Emily as she swept the mess and whispered, "Why don't you stop them? They're so mean." Most grown ups would say something like, "Oh, I can't," or "I'm scared." But Emily. She just smiled a tiny smile, leaned down close to him, and winked. "Don't worry, kiddo," she said in her soft, steady voice. "I've got a plan." The boy's eyes got even bigger. "A plan? What kind of plan?" He didn't ask, but he ran out of the shop grinning, like he knew something exciting was coming. The bikers, though. They didn't see any of this. They were too busy being loud and rude to notice anything about Emily. They didn't see how her hands moved when she picked up the broken chocolate, slow and steady, not shaky like someone who's scared. They didn't notice how she stood behind the counter tall and straight, not all bent over like an old lady who's weak. They thought she was nothing. Just a quiet candy lady who couldn't do a thing to stop them. They'd laugh and say, "She's too old. She's too soft," and then go right back to making trouble. But they were missing something big. Something huge. And it was getting closer every day. See, Emily wasn't just sitting there doing nothing. She was watching every move they made. When Razor smashed that chocolate display, she didn't just clean it up, she remembered how he swung his arm, how he stood, how he laughed. When they banged on the windows, she listened to their voices, figuring out who was loudest, who was meanest. She was like a detective, collecting clues, putting pieces together. But why? What was she planning? The bikers didn't have a clue, and that was their big mistake. Every day they came back, they got bolder. One time, they parked their bikes so close to the door that Emily had to squeeze past them just to sweep the sidewalk. Another time, they threw gumdrops at the windows, leaving sticky little spots all over the glass. Razor even leaned right over the counter once and snatched a handful of candy, eating it right in front of her while grinning. "What you gonna do about it?" he teased. Emily didn't answer. She just looked at him, her eyes sharp and quiet, and went back to wiping the counter. The bikers thought she was giving up. They thought they'd won. Oh boy, were they wrong. Little things started to show up if you paid close attention. Like how Emily never jumped when they yelled. Most people would flinch or cover their ears, but not her. Or how she didn't shake when she picked up the mess they made, her hands were steady as a rock. And her face? It didn't look scared or sad. It looked ready. Like she was waiting for the perfect moment. The bikers didn't see it. They were too busy acting tough. But something big was brewing. You could feel it in the air, like the way it feels when a storm's about to hit and everything gets quiet and heavy. So, what do you think her plan might be? She's not crying or calling the cops, but she's not giving up either. Is she gonna trick them? Fight them? Something even wilder? I bet you've got some awesome guesses. Tell me in the comments, what would you do if you were Emily? Would you make a sneaky trap? Or maybe scare them away with a big surprise? I'm dying to know what you think. Back in the shop, the days kept passing, and the bikers kept pushing. They thought they could do anything they wanted. They thought Emily was weak and helpless. But every time they laughed, every time they broke something, they were getting closer to finding out the truth. Something big was coming, something fast and wild. And Emily? She was ready for it. She had that plan, and it was gonna change everything. Stick around, because you won't believe what happens next. Everything exploded on a Friday night in Maple Grove. The sun was gone, the sky was dark, and the little town was quiet until the bikers showed up. Their motorcycles roared in louder than ever before, like a pack of angry lions charging down the street. The engines growled and shook the ground, making the windows of Dawson's sweet shop rattle. This wasn't just another visit. Oh no, this time they were ready to wreck the place for good. The 5 big, tough bikers jumped off their bikes and stormed toward the shop, their boots stomping loud on the pavement. They weren't laughing or joking now, they looked mean and ready for trouble. Razor, the leader, was in front. His scruffy beard and sneaky grin were gone, replaced with a hard, angry face. He didn't even knock or wait. He kicked the shop door open with one big swing of his leg, bam, and the wood creaked like it might break. "Time's up, Candy Lady," he shouted, his voice booming through the shop. "Say goodbye to your little store." The other bikers pushed in behind him, laughing rough and loud, cracking their knuckles like they were about to smash everything. They spread out, eyeing the shelves full of candy, ready to tear it all apart. The air felt heavy, like something huge was about to happen. Inside, Emily was behind the counter, just like always. But this time, something was different. The bikers didn't notice at first, they were too busy yelling and acting tough. Razor pointed at her and sneered, "You're done, old lady. This place is ours now." The gang hooted and cheered, stepping closer, their shadows stretching across the floor. They thought this was it. They thought they'd won. They thought Emily would just stand there and let them ruin her shop. Oh boy, were they in for a shock. Then bam, Emily moved. She stepped out from behind the counter, and everything about her was different. No bright apron tonight. No friendly smile. She wore a black jacket that made her look tough, like someone you don't mess with. Her gray hair was pulled back tight, not loose and soft like usual. And her face? It was stone cold serious, like a statue that didn't budge. No fear. No shaking. Just pure strength. The bikers stopped for a second, surprised, but Razor just smirked. "What's this?" he teased, crossing his arms. "Dress up time? You think a jacket scares us?" Emily didn't say a word. She didn't need to. She moved fast. So fast you could barely see it. In 2 seconds flat, she grabbed Razor's big, tattooed arm with her hand. She twisted it hard behind his back, like twisting a towel to wring out water. Razor didn't even have time to yell. She slammed him down, wham, face first onto the counter. His nose hit the wood with a loud thunk, and he groaned, pinned there like a bug under a shoe. The other bikers froze. Their mouths dropped open, jaws hanging like they couldn't believe their eyes. What just happened? Who was this lady? But Emily wasn't done. Oh no, she was just getting started. Before the gang could even blink, she spun around and faced the next biker, a bald guy with a big belly. She kicked his legs out from under him, pow, and he crashed to the floor like a sack of potatoes. He yelled, "Oof," as he landed, rolling into a pile of candy bags. Then she turned to the next one, a skinny guy with a ponytail. She grabbed his arm, flipped him right over her shoulder flip, and he flew through the air, landing on his back with a loud thud. He stared up at the ceiling, eyes wide, too shocked to move. The last 2 bikers tried to run at her together, thinking they could take her down. Bad idea. Emily ducked low, grabbed one by the waist, and shoved him hard into a shelf of jelly beans. Crash! The shelf tipped, and colorful jelly beans rained down everywhere, red, green, yellow, bouncing all over the floor. The other guy swung a fist at her, but she was too quick. She stepped aside, grabbed his arm, and pushed him right into his body. They smashed into each other, bang, and fell in a big heap, tangled up in candy and broken shelves. The whole shop was a mess now, but Emily? She didn't even break a sweat. She stood there, breathing steady, like she'd just finished a little walk, not a fight. The bikers were down. All 5 of them. Razor was still pinned to the counter, groaning. The others were sprawled out on the floor, covered in candy, looking up at Emily like she was a monster. Their tough guy faces were gone. Now they looked scared, confused, and a little silly with jelly beans stuck to their jackets. Razor tried to wiggle free, but Emily held him tight. He wheezed, his voice all shaky, Who, who are you? He sounded like a kid who just got caught doing something bad. The other bikers stared, waiting, holding their breath. They wanted to know too. Who was this candy lady who just beat them all up? Emily leaned down close to Razor, her face right next to his. Her voice was low and calm, but strong like a teacher who means business. Retired Navy SEAL, she said. And you picked the wrong store to mess with. Boom. There it was, the big secret. A Navy SEAL. That's like a super tough soldier who fights bad guys and does crazy missions. Retired means she used to do it and stopped, but she was still awesome. The bikers' eyes got huge. Their jaws dropped even more, if that was possible. They'd been picking on a real-life hero this whole time. The shop went quiet for a second. You could hear Razor breathing hard, still stuck under Emily's grip. The jelly beans stopped rolling, and the broken shelves creaked a little. The bikers didn't move. They couldn't. They'd thought Emily was just some weak old lady, but now they knew the truth. She wasn't weak. She wasn't soft. She was strong, stronger than all of them put together. And they'd walked right into her trap, thinking they could scare her. What a mistake. So, how's that for a twist? Did you see it coming? I bet you're shocked, right? A candy lady who's a Navy SEAL, it's wild. Imagine being those bikers, thinking you're so tough, and then bam, she takes you down like it's nothing. What do you think about that? Tell me in the comments, did you guess she was something special? Or were you totally surprised? I wanna know. Back in the shop, the fight was over, but the story wasn't. Emily stood tall, looking at the mess and the bikers on the floor. She'd shown them who she really was, and they'd never forget it. But what happens next? Oh, it's gonna be good, stick around to find out. After Emily took down those bikers, they didn't stand a chance. Not even a little bit. She was way too strong and smart for them. The shop was a mess, jelly beans all over the floor, broken shelves, candy wrappers everywhere, but Emily didn't care about that yet. She had work to do. She grabbed some rope from under the counter. Yep, rope. Don't ask why she had it there, it's just one of those cool mysteries about her. She moved fast, tying up all 5 bikers like they were presents wrapped for Christmas. Their hands were stuck behind their backs, and they couldn't wiggle free no matter how hard they tried. Razor, the leader, was squirming the most. His face was red, and he kept whining, "Let me go. She's crazy. She's not normal." The other bikers groaned and nodded, still shocked from getting beat up by the candy lady. But Emily didn't let them go. She picked up the phone and called the sheriff. Her voice was calm, like she was ordering a pizza, not reporting a bunch of tied-up bad guys. "Sheriff, I've got some troublemakers here," she said. "Can you come get them?" The cops showed up quick. The sheriff walked in, a big guy with a shiny badge, and saw the bikers all tied up on the floor. Razor was still complaining, "She attacked us. She's nuts." But the sheriff didn't buy it. He looked at Emily standing there, cool as ever, and then at the bikers covered in candy dust. He chuckled, a deep laugh that shook his belly. "Should have left her alone, boys," he said, shaking his head. "You picked the wrong lady to mess with." The deputies grabbed the bikers, untangled them from the rope, and hauled them out to the police cars. They were going straight to jail, no more trouble for Maple Grove. Word about what happened spread fast like wildfire. By morning, everyone in town was talking about it. The townsfolk couldn't believe it. Quiet little Emily, the candy lady, was a Navy SEAL? No way. People who used to just wave at her now stopped to stare. "Did you hear?" they'd whisper. "She took down 5 big bikers all by herself." Kids thought it was the coolest thing ever. They started calling her Candy Commander, like she was a superhero with a secret identity. They'd run by the shop, giggling and shouting, "Hi, Candy Commander." Emily would just smile and wave, like it was no big deal. Customers started coming more than ever. The shop was busy all the time now. People lined up outside, not just for candy, but to shake Emily's hand. "You're amazing," they'd say. "We had no idea." Moms brought their kids to meet her, and old folks told her, "You're a hero." The bikers were gone, locked up in jail, and Maple Grove was peaceful again. No more loud engines, no more broken windows. Just happy people and the sweet smell of candy floating through the air. Emily went back to work like nothing had changed. She put on her bright apron, fixed the shelves, and started selling lollipops and gumdrops again. But everyone knew the truth now. She wasn't just sweet like her candy, she was tough as nails. Nobody would ever mess with her shop again. The bikers learned that the hard way, and the town learned something awesome about their candy lady. So, what do you think the bikers learned that day? I bet they were super surprised. Maybe they learned not to judge people by how they look. Or maybe they learned to stay away from candy shops. What's your guess? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I'd love to hear what you think. Emily's story shows that even the quietest person can be super strong. Pretty cool, right? Emily's story shows us something big. You can't tell how tough someone is just by looking at them. It's like a book, you can't judge it by the cover. The strongest people don't always look strong. They don't need to yell or brag or act big. Nope. They stay quiet, they watch everything, and they wait for the perfect moment to do something amazing. Emily did that. She didn't tell anyone she was a Navy SEAL. She didn't show off. She just waited until those bikers pushed her too far, and then bam, she showed them who she really was. Pretty awesome, right? So, next time you meet someone quiet or someone who seems super normal, think twice. They might have a secret that's so cool it'll blow your mind. Maybe your teacher's a secret superhero. Maybe your neighbor used to climb mountains. You never know. Emily's story teaches us to look closer and not judge people too fast. The toughest ones might be hiding right in front of you. Thanks for staying with me to the end. Did you love it? Give it a thumbs up, tell a friend, and let me know what's your favorite part. I can't wait to hear. See you in the next story. Bye for now.